Good morning and welcome to the Truth Network. And again, I thank you for tuning in to another day or edition of God's Word that I may serve to inspire you to realize that God is God and there is no other like Him. That even when you can't see Him, don't feel Him moving in your life, don't feel like, don't feel favor in your life, don't feel, the exuberance and the excitement of knowing that God is and that God is still blessing you, that He is. I come this morning to help you to see the whole picture. Come this morning, feeling a little bit, giddy because yesterday was, I must say that yesterday was a pretty peculiar day. I was out doing things, and it was just a longing in my spirit that something wasn't quite right. And I realized the difficulty in trying to do two things at the same time. Out trying to seek employment, but spirit out, seeing people and walking upon people and seeing that there was something else that I was supposed to be doing for these people. On the one hand, you wanted to talk about career opportunities, but on the other hand, your spirit longing to help them to realize that God is God. Conflicted. So this morning, I woke up and yesterday was most of the day, I felt like I had just missed out on something. I had, placed something above what God wanted me to be doing. And I imagine that many of us have to deal with similar situations because life seems to almost dictate that, there are things that you have to do. There are things that you need to do because our natural perception, our natural perspective says that if I, put in a hard day's work at this particular place, that particular place has agreed to compensate me for the work that I've given them. So, and because my light bill, my gas bill, my mortgage, my gas, all of those things are almost dependent upon a form of monetary resource that it behooves us. It behooves us to work for that which we can see. I know that if I go here and I give them this, that I can see what the end is going to be. So oftentimes we'll place that ahead of things that God has called us to do. And it's so good when you have found yourself at a place where God, you can feel in your spirit. Some of us have put our spirit so to sleep that we don't feel God's nudging when we're out of place. We don't feel, when the priorities have shifted, we don't feel God's nudging. But oh, it's a wonderful place when you can be at that place, because when you're at that place where you can feel God, then you can get things back in order. So this morning I want to talk to you. I woke up this morning and I must admit, a lot of mornings I wake up and music is playing in my head. But as I woke up this morning, the music was playing in my head that is turning around. It's turning around for me. Yes, and it's not only for me, because God is not a respecter of persons. It's turning around for you, It's turning around. And today I want to help you to see the whole picture. I want to help you to see the whole picture, because a lot of times, it's just a human tendency that the things that are most important to us at that particular juncture in our lives are the things that we focus on. And when we focus on those things, quite naturally, or in most cases, we begin to focus less on other things, causing us not to see the whole picture. We place this portion of what's going on, and it becomes more important because stress, when life stresses you, you can't help but to focus on the area that's stressing you. When it's not really affecting or adversely affecting you, and it happens second nature almost, then you can appreciate it, but you don't focus on it. You don't really pay it very much attention. It's just a human flaw that we have. But you have to realize that there is a bigger picture to what you are currently seeing. What you are currently seeing ain't what you currently saw 5 years ago. It's not what you currently saw a year ago. What was important 5 years ago, I'm sure that situation, I'm not saying that the essence of what was important has changed, but the situation that represented stress 5 years ago, I'm sure probably doesn't look the same way that it looked then. But the whole picture hadn't changed. God was still God. How many of you have, and it happens so routinely that many of us don't focus on it. We will place all of our attention on one area, and when that one area isn't giving you what you would like it to be giving you, well, you just forget the goodness of all the other areas. Let me be more specific, and I'll speak to my own situation, so as not to condemn you or not to seem as if I am knocking at your door. I will tell you in my own particular situation, there are so many things that God has given me. I've gone through 5 brain surgeries. I've gone through 6 knee surgeries. I've had things happen to me. I had them say that I wouldn't make it through the night after the initial car accident. But how many of you know, because of life stresses and because of allowing those things to stress me, that all I have been able to see was the fact that God hasn't blessed me financially. And I'll tell you that because I didn't see the whole picture and I focused in on what He hadn't done, it made me not really appreciate what He has done. I want you to get that, because I'm sure that I'm not an anomaly. I'm sure that it doesn't just happen with God. It happens in our homes. It happens with our mates. It happens on our jobs. We will focus on that stressor in our life, and it makes us forget all the other things that would probably, if you could see the whole picture, you would realize that many of those things are more important than what you're focusing on. I want you to get that. I want you to get that. Because when I allowed the fact that, and I'll take you back a little bit, God had told me a long time ago that I was going to bless you with abundant riches. I was going to give you this. If you put me here and you did this, I was going to give you what you needed. So I lost it all. I sacrificed it all. And then it became, life stresses. You lose this, you lose that. You lose this, you lose that. You need to eat. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to have money to do this. You need to have money to do that. You need to have money to do that. So, because He had said that I would give you this, and because life began to stress, I began to look not to all the other things that he was doing, but the area of the focus became on what he had said that he had not given yet. And it caused me to move away from God. It caused me to begin to lose faith in God. It caused me not to recognize the whole picture. It caused me to begin to trust in my own way of getting the money that I needed instead of trusting God. I began to focus on one area, forgetting about seeing the whole picture. I wouldn't allow myself to realize that even if he gave me the money, if he had called me out of the earth because of one of the brain surgeries going bad, that the money would have been insignificant. If he had taken away a loved one that I love so much, yeah, I would have needed the money, but it wouldn't have been able to, change my perspective and move me away from God. We must allow ourselves to see the whole picture, because when you begin to focus in on one particular area, you begin to lose sight of the fact that he woke you up this morning, on the fact that you have eyesight and you can see your way through this earth. You know, when you focus in on just one area, you forget that we need gravity to be able to inhabit this earth, and gravity is the result of God's goodness. You forget all the other things. You forget the fact that he woke your significant other up this morning. You forget the fact that your child was able to go to school this day and return safely without any hurt, harm, or danger coming upon him. You forget that you still can walk and use your limbs, whether you had money or not. When you focus on one area, not allowing yourself to see the whole picture, you become jaded. You become jaded, and life will continue to stress you in that area, because it's, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities. The trick of the enemy would have you continue to move farther and farther and farther and farther away from God, farther and farther and farther away from harmony, farther and farther and farther away from joy, farther and farther and farther away from happiness. And if all happiness, all joy, all life begins with God, then he's going to continue to stress you to move you away from God. That's why we wrestle. That's why we're in a battle, flesh versus our spirit. Our flesh says that you better focus in on this one area, because if you lose in this one area, it's going to affect other areas. Spirit says you best to focus in on the whole picture, because even if you corrected that one area, all these other areas, if I just allowed them to fall, then that one area that you're focusing on probably isn't as significant as you are making it. But I want you to see the whole picture, because God does so many things for us. He's so good to us. He so loves us. He gives us a mind. And again, you can't recognize the significance and the importance of being able to think until you are afflicted one day and you just lose your mind. Yeah, it's hard to imagine, and I had, a lady tell me when I first got into the ministry, she said, we can all talk about, what we would or what we wouldn't do, but you just don't know what you will do until it comes knocking at your door. Yeah, we thank God for the things that we have, but we do it in a, almost a intellectual type way. Yeah, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. But what about this here? Because this is, I mean, obviously you can see God, that I'm struggling in this area. Obviously you can see that this is an area of importance. Obviously you can see where I am. So let's deal with this part. I'm okay in these areas. I got my health, so I appreciate it. But let's deal with this one area here. I appreciate the fact that you watched over the kids, but let's deal with this one. I appreciate the fact that my house didn't burn down just by some freak accident. But let's deal with this one area here. I appreciate the fact that when I rolled out of my bed this morning that my limbs didn't give up. But I got that. But let's deal with this one area here because those things are not stressors right now. But this is. How many of you know that you've got to be able to see the whole picture? There's a bigger picture to your struggle. There's a bigger picture to this situation that you're going through today because it too shall pass. It's not always. It's not always, but it'll become always. Because you'll never get yourself in the place that God would have you be if you continue to allow that to dominate your focus. Have to be able to see the whole picture. Have to be able to see the whole picture because it's bigger than just what you're focusing on. And again, I'll tell you, it is difficult not to focus on that which you can see, not to focus on that which you can control, not to focus on that which your flesh says is natural. You swim to the pier or to the shore because you realize that there's safety at the shore. So you can focus on that. You don't swim to the middle of the ocean and say God is going to, intervene because you can't see that. That requires faith. That just requires you wouldn't get out and try to walk on the water like Peter did because that's hard. That requires an inordinate amount of faith. It's not easy. So then we begin to focus in on the things that on the one area, forgetting about the whole picture. We walk away from God because He doesn't do this one thing for us. We become jaded, not realizing that He has done so many other things, and He's not only done them, He's continually doing them for us. Continually. Like I say, in my case, focus on the money and what you didn't do. But how many of you know that all the money in the world, if you say, I'll give you this, but I'm going to take your life and in 2 days you're going to fall dead, that my whole perspective will change about money. Same thing with many of things that we deal with. Many of things that we place this inordinate amount of importance on, and we focus in on that one area, and that's the only area that we focus in on, not realizing that there are so many things that are equally important that we relegated to second-class citizens. Second-class, it's important, but that's not my issue right now. So I'm not concerned about the fact that you're doing this. What about this over here? Yeah, you may be doing that, but what about, I'm not focusing. I'm not trying to see the whole picture. I'm talking about this right here. What about this area? Yeah, you do that, but why you ain't doing this here? And though you've acknowledged that, doesn't carry the same weight as this over here. So can you see the whole picture, not only in your relationship with God, but in your relationship with your mates? Can you see the whole picture? Guys, can you see the whole picture of what that woman brings to you? Yeah, maybe she don't cook the way that you would like. Maybe she don't cook with the frequency at which you like. And that becomes what you focus on. Oh, you don't do this, you don't do that, you don't do this, you don't do that. Because that's a stressor right now. But you can't see the whole picture of all the other intangible things that she brings to the house. You pick up the kids, and I appreciate that, but it's not important because it's not a stressor. Yeah, you go to the cleaners and you pick up, you wash the clothes out, yeah. But why you ain't doing this over here? And that becomes the focus. It becomes what you fixate on. And in many cases, if it's bad enough, that becomes the one area that causes you to walk away from that which is providing so many other things that you've just relegated to second-class citizenry. Because you're not allowing yourself to see the whole picture. Not the whole picture. Not the whole picture. She's not intimate with you as much as you would like. All you can see, and because you're jaded now, you're focusing on this one area because now this area has knocked on your door. It has knocked on your door. So now you're focusing on it. And you've forgotten about all the other things that she does. All the other benefits that she brings. All the other ways that she just put butterflies in your spirit and in your heart. And you walk away into something else. But how many of you know that when you walk into that situation, if you don't allow yourself to see the whole picture and begin to focus on one thing, that there's going to be one thing in that relationship and in that woman, that if you focus on it exclusively, is going to cause you to be in the same place that you are in your current relationship. Because you're going to find yourself in a place where you don't allow yourself to see the whole picture. Because the whole picture is not a stressor at that moment. The whole picture is not beating at your door at that moment. The fact that she's doing this, you're gonna recognize that. But why you ain't doing this over here? This is the stressor. Can't you realize that this is the stressor? So we relegate all that other stuff to, you do it, you do it, but it happens. It's almost a natural tendency to happen. You don't worry about cancer until you get cancer. And then it becomes oh so important. You don't worry about losing your house until you actually lose the house. And then that becomes your area of focus. And you forget about many of the other things. Yeah, you acknowledge them. Yeah, I'm grateful that God woke me this morning. I'm grateful that the kids are okay. I'm grateful. It becomes an intellectual type gratitude. And you don't allow yourself to see the whole picture. There's an entire picture. There's not just one piece of the puzzle. Although this piece is significant to putting the puzzle together, the puzzle is bigger than this one piece, and you must allow yourself to see the whole picture. The whole picture with God. The whole picture on your job. The whole picture in your homes. The whole picture with your mates. You know, so many of us focus on what our kids aren't doing. And we become jaded in our perspectives, in our perceptions, realizing that there's a bigger picture, there's a whole picture. And we begin to stop celebrating what they are doing. Because all we can see at that moment is the stress of what they are not doing. Happens on our jobs. We forget about the fact that we're being compensated exceptionally well because it's not a stress. It's almost second nature. It happens. I don't have to worry about that. That's going to happen. But what about this over here, man? What about this over here? When are you going to fix this? When are you going to fix it? Failing to see the whole picture. Because that has become our focus. Happens with God. Happens in every respect of our lives. And it only comes to push us away from the things that we're engaged in. How many of you have left jobs because one area wasn't the way that you wanted and you focused in on that just one area? Failing to see the whole picture of all that the job gets. How many of you have walked away from relationships and marriages because this one area wasn't right and you didn't see the whole picture but that one area? How many of you have walked away from God? And I can raise my hand. Because one area wasn't right and that area was a stressor area. It happens. It happens. It happens, but you must allow yourself to see the whole picture. The whole picture. The whole picture. Because if I was homeless, yet dealing with the death of my mother or someone, then I can imagine that, yeah, I would need shelter and I would want shelter, but it would pale in comparison to the fact that my mother was on her dying bed. How many of you know that if I didn't have food, but I just found out that my significant other had been in a car accident, that yeah, I would still need food, but I could see the bigger picture and I could see the whole picture, and it would pale in comparison to my desire to get to where she was. But how many of you know in that same scenario, if she just came home and nothing happened and she was okay, that I would be grateful, but it wouldn't be a stressor. So I wouldn't focus on that. I would focus on the fact that I need food and I need it right now and I got to find a way to get it and I better get it right now. Failing to see the whole picture that God had brought her back to me safely. Wouldn't see the whole picture. And it happens all the time. It happens all the time because we focus on the areas in our lives that are stressors at the moment. It's a stressor, so deal with it, focus on it. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't focus on your issues because God has called us to be responsible. Yeah, life is growth. Life is growth. And you can't grow in a situation unless you deal with the situation and become elevated, learning what you can in that situation. But that situation doesn't represent the entirety of all the situations that are going on in your life. And it can't serve to dominate your focus. You have to focus on it because you have to deal with it so that you can overcome it. But it cannot cause you to become jaded in your perspective so that it causes you to walk away from something that has more than just that element in it. See the whole picture. See the whole picture. See the fact that you can hear me this morning. And so many would love to be able to hear, maybe not me, but they would love to be able to hear the sounds of life. And don't just think of it as, oh yeah, okay, well yeah. Even worse, don't even think about it at all because so many of us, we don't think about those little things. That it just happens every day, every minute, every hour, every second. So you don't think about it. You don't think about it until you go one day and they say, you know what, you're losing your hearing. And then it becomes ever important at that point. You don't think about the fact that you just get to walk every day and, and then one day you get arthritis and something happens with your limbs and you're no longer able to use them in the capacity that you once did. And then it becomes important. See, there's a whole picture to our lives. You don't just go and put all the weight in an airplane on one side or in one area of the airplane. Because the airplane, there's a whole airplane and the weight has to be evenly distributed. But if you just focus on this side, then that side is going to go up and that side is going to dip down and the whole plane is going to come down. See the whole picture because there's more to your relationship with God than just that one area of stress. There's more to your relationships at your places of worship, at your places of worship, than just one area. There's a whole picture to your place of employment, other than just that one area that's a stressor. There's more to your relationships, your romantic relationships, than just that one stressor that you're dealing with now. Don't walk away from God. Don't walk away from your mates. Don't walk away from joy. Don't walk away from life because one area in your life is a stressor. Because God hadn't done one thing that you thought he should have done. Because your mates don't do one thing that you think that they should do. See the whole picture. See the whole picture. Analyze the whole picture. Ask yourself, am I looking at the whole picture? And what if this part resolves itself? What if it gets right? Would I still want to sacrifice the entirety of the relationship? What if God gives the money? Would I have still wanted to sacrifice the entirety of our relationship because one small aspect of the relationship wasn't going the way that I wanted it to? Because my significant other don't do the things that I did. One area, just one area, maybe two. But then there's 5, 10 that she does. As I ask, is those two areas worth sacrificing the entirety of the relationship? You have to ask, you have to look at the whole picture. The whole picture, because it's bigger than the stress of that one area that you're dealing with. There's a bigger picture. It's a complete picture. And as we grow in wisdom, as we grow in maturity, as we grow in knowledge, God expects us to grow in our ability to be able to see the whole picture. He expects us to look not only at that current stressor in our lives, but to balance that against all the good that happens that most of the time we just relegate to. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, it happened. Yeah, okay, yeah, you did that, but yeah, okay, yeah. What do you want, a cookie for it? Well, I mean, okay, yeah, well, you were supposed to do that. Well, you were supposed to wake me up this morning. What do you want? You want a cookie for it? You were supposed to keep the earth, going. But why I ain't got this in my life, God? Why you ain't doing this? Because, yeah, you were supposed to do those things, but you're supposed to do that too. So if you ain't doing that, then I've forgotten the fact that, those things are just supposed to happen. I'm not celebrating those things because you're supposed to do that. What about this area here now? And so many of us allow that area there to cause us to shift away from God. Same thing in our homes, in our relationships. You were supposed to take the trash. You were supposed to do that. You were supposed to go to work. You were supposed to do this. But what about this area over here, man? Woman? What about that area there? And we allow that one area to cause us to walk away from that which God has placed in our lives. Begin to see the whole picture today. It's my only thing if I've got to get one thing across to you today, is to see the whole picture, because God is infinitely good. So many things happen. Just in your body is such an intricate species. There are so many things that has to click and tick and talk at the same time to ensure that you remain a living being. And again, I guess it's difficult if you're not, a scientist or a doctor that really understands all the workings that goes on in the body to ensure that we are human beings, that we are living beings, that it just becomes, okay, well, it happens all the time, and it's just a human tendency to take for granted things that happen all the time. It's just a human tendency. If it's not a stressor, then ain't no sense in worrying about it. Ain't no sense in really focusing on it. It just happens. I want you to see the whole picture. See all that that woman brings to your life. See all that that child does to celebrate the fact that you're his or her parent. See all that your mates do to show you that they are there with you and that they love you. See all that God does for us to help us realize that He is God and that He does love us. See the whole picture today. See the whole picture. And I guarantee you that your life will never be the same. Because you'll start taking for granted, it won't have to knock on your door for you to realize that it happens. It won't have to bang you on the head to realize that it happens. You won't have to go through brain surgeries like me and find yourself at a place of still questioning whether God loves you. No, you'll be able to see the whole picture and realize that had it not been for God, you never would have come out of the first brain surgery. You never would have come out of the second brain surgery. You never would have come out of the third brain surgery. You never would have come out of the fourth brain surgery. You never would have come out of the fifth brain surgery. You wouldn't have the mental capacity to speak the way that you do. You wouldn't have the physical strength to be able to talk and do the things that you do. You wouldn't be able to hear. You wouldn't die, lost the sense of smell, but you wouldn't even be able to talk if it wasn't for God. So stop allowing the stressor in this one area. And I'm not just talking to myself, talking to you, because there's a stressor in your life right now that's causing you to question. God is causing you to question your mates. It's causing you to question your kids. It's causing you to question a whole number of things. But see the whole picture. See the whole picture and balance it all out. And if the whole picture, represents decline, if the whole picture, tears down, if the whole picture doesn't provide hope that things are going to be better, then walk away. Walk away. Walk away. But if you can see the whole picture and you realize that just this one area of stress doesn't represent the entirety, it has to be dealt with, needs to be dealt with. But it's not so much so that it represents the entirety of what we have here. Then see the whole picture. And then don't be moved by just one area, one piece of the puzzle, but allow the entirety of the picture to move you. I thank you for tuning in this morning. I hope that the words have inspired you, certainly added some joy to my life this morning, certainly added some exuberance to some excitement to my life this morning. I must say that I had just woken up and got out of the shower when I, began to speak this message. And I guess a little still, first, part of the day still, didn't have the energy that I have now. But there's something about God. There's something about giving. There's something about purpose. There's something about recognizing the whole picture that gives you joy, gives you excitement, gives you exuberance. And I want you to have that this day. In your homes, in your relationships, on your jobs, and in your relationship with God. But I know that life brings about stresses. Life brings about stresses that are intended to cause us to focus in on one area, to jade us so that we don't see the whole picture. Again, I love you. I thank you. I appreciate your listening. God bless you. And until next time. Goodbye.